Howdy folks, Jamboree here. The idea of Jim Henson, one of the godfathers of puppet filmmaking, adapting one of Roald Dahl's books sounds like delicious perfection. I mean, they were just as weird and imaginative as each other. They were a match made in heaven. The end result was The Witches, and I've not really read The Witches book, but I definitely grew up with this movie. But I didn't watch it that often. You're about to find out why. The Witches is a fantasy horror movie about a boy called Luke and his grandma Helga, who go away to a hotel by the sea, where a community of child-hating witches are having a secret meeting. Luke is caught by the witches and turned into a mouse. With Helga's help, he must stop the witches from turning all the children of England into mice too. This film is often renowned for being one of the scariest children's films ever made, and I can see why. There's some really creepy and terrifying moments in it, from the surreal, twisted mouse transformations to the merciless cruelty of the witches themselves. Even Roald Dahl himself said that the film went too far. This movie did scare the crap out of me as a kid, but at the same time, I liked that a family movie was willing to take me out of my comfort zone and drop me into a cauldron of fear. I got this exhilarating thrill from the adrenaline of fear. Some kids do like horror, and I was one of them. So, some kids are going to love being scared by this movie, but others might get nightmares from it. At the end of the day, all kids are different, and it's up to their parents to work out whether they could handle this movie. The aspect of the film that disturbed me the most as a kid was the Grand High Witch herself, and I can see why she did. Her makeup is grotesquely hideous, and actress Angelica Houston wears it with believable confidence, immersing herself into the hag-like role. However, while the witches can be quite creepy now and again, it's not easy to take seriously for the most part. Why? It's really silly. Like hilariously silly. The acting is incredibly over the top and hammy, most of the characters are written like cartoon caricatures, plus the hotel manager is played by Mr. Bean himself, Rowan Atkinson, who's having a saucy affair with a maid, just to add even more ridiculousness to the movie. The silliness of the film is a double-edged sword. Sometimes it aids it, other times it wounds it. The goofy and wacky tone of the film definitely gives it a surreal, warped, trippy feel, but it also sometimes doesn't work in the film's favour, leading to some confusing execution. For example, the witches are written and performed so outlandishly that they don't exactly seem subtle in their actions. There's many times where they do a pretty rubbish job being discreet about their real identities. Which kept making me wonder, why hasn't anyone ever been suspicious of these women? They're clearly giving off weird vibes. But no, they've managed to stay secret as a community, and no one seems to be suspicious about them except Helga and Luke. It's also really weird how the kids act so nonchalant about being turned into mice. Yes, kids are very adaptable, but this isn't a grazed knee or spilled custard. You've been turned into bloody mice! Mice! Your life has been changed forever! A little panic would make sense! However, behind all the spookiness, silliness, and weirdness of the film, there is some heart to it at the same time. The relationship between Luke and his grandma is very endearing. You can tell that Helga loves him dearly, and it's clear that Luke really looks up to his grandma. He genuinely finds her stories and knowledge of witches to be quite fascinating. Now, some of you are probably thinking, why is he reviewing this for Puppet Panic? Where are the bloody puppets? Well, first of all, calm down. Sometimes the mice in the film are depicted through small mouse puppets. They're very adorable, detailedly crafted, and it's very impressive that the puppeteers managed to bring so much life to these tiny little puppets. Although sometimes real mice are used instead of the puppets, and it's pretty easy to spot the transition, which is kind of distracting. I think this is mainly because the puppets look much chubbier and shorter than the real mice. I think it would have worked much better if the mice shots were all done by puppetry, but maybe there were limitations or restraints. To conclude, the witches may frighten sensitive children, but much braver kids will love being treated to some family-friendly horror. As an adult, I do think that there's some genuinely creepy and disturbing moments in this film, but for the most part, I was just laughing my arse off at how silly, over-the-top and ridiculous it all is. And you know what? That's what makes it so much fun to watch! I definitely recommend this movie if you want to see something entertainingly weird, dark, campy and silly. Sure, some things don't make much sense, but it really is a ride to sit through. So grab some popcorn, invite over your friends and have a blast. I've been Jamboree and I hope you enjoyed my review. If you did, then I encourage you to like, subscribe and share. I'd also really appreciate it if you could support me on my Patreon. Cheerio folks!